Mr. Jeff Paterson, the host of Rinkwide Vancouver, our Canucks reporter, was busy at it Saturday. But, Jeff, we're going to start on the big club and the breaking news today that Trevor Zegras is going from Anaheim to Philadelphia. When you take a look at the trade cost, is that a opportunity loss for the Canucks to get an offensive player?
Well, first of all, I was just glad that this trade was announced in daylight. I woke up on a Saturday morning to that Seattle, Chicago, the Bjorkstrand and Veleno thing, 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I thought, oh boy, here we go. They're just sort of, this is going to be the undercard for a big weekend, and then nothing the rest of the way. So now that we are officially into draft week, you can see it there on Friday. I would think that this is an indication that things are going to ramp up here. Opportunity lost for the Canucks, impossible to say. I see a lot of people thinking out there that, at that price, the Canucks should have made this deal. Well, wait a second here. Anaheim gets a say. That's not how this process works. That the Canucks just walk to the front of the queue and say, excuse us, so we'd like this deal to happen. Clearly, Anaheim saw enough in the return from Philadelphia, albeit underwhelming on the surface. There's also this idea of trading within the division that maybe, that thinking is going away slowly in hockey, but it's kind of been their prevailing wisdom for far too long. Whatever the case, I hope the Canucks were kicking tires because, again, a player with a track record of production under the age of 25, they're not available all that often. And for all the discussion about Marco Rossi, and look, Trevor Zegras has issues. We know that. The last 2 seasons have not gone well. This is a guy that was twice a 60-point scorer at the ages of 20 and 21. So he looked like absolutely his career was launching. And then whether it was injuries, whether it was sort of getting sidetracked a little bit, maybe distracted by some of the off-ice trappings that come with life in the National Hockey League, he just looked distracted and hadn't looked the same player. So fresh start for him. Pretty clear that he wasn't in Anaheim's long-term plans. And again, when you're the Ducks and you've been down for so long, but one of the things they seem to have done well now is fill with better talent behind Ziggress so that he becomes expendable. And they've got Leo Carlson and they've got Mason McTavish and they've got other players there that they like better, clearly. Now, I am really fascinated to see how Trevor Zegras and Rick Tocchet get along, having some first-hand knowledge the last couple of seasons of the way Tocchet has expectations on players that, when I think of an Andrei Kuzmenko, there's others, Ziggress is going to have to fall in line in Philadelphia. But maybe a trade like this, snaps him to attention. I still think there's a highly skilled and talented player there. It's on Philadelphia to bring that out and to bring it back. But, those are the types of players, again, that I think the Vancouver Canucks have to be kicking tires on. But, for whatever reason, Anaheim decided that Philadelphia was a better landing spot for him.
I've seen some people say this could affect the price tag on Marco Rossi, and this isn't the deal that Bill Guerin wanted to see when shopping Rossi. Do you think the two were connected at all?
It is fascinating to note that Marco Rossi was the 9th pick in the 2020 draft. Trevor Zegras was the 9th pick in the 2019 draft. So 1 year separating guys that were taken at the exact same spot in the draft, and both have been 60-point producers within the first couple of years of their draft. So there are some similarities, certainly, in the player. I'm not saying that they're carbon copies. As for the price of Rossi, I still maintain that the Canucks have been interested. They've been linked to Rossi for a while now. My initial read on this idea that the 15th overall and a player, and I think we talked about it last week, I think this is all part of the negotiation, that you make an offer, Minnesota rejects it, doesn't mean that the deal is dead and you can't get your hands on that player. It's just that Minnesota didn't like your first foray. So it's a lot like real estate in that regard. Come back with the best and final here at some point. And it doesn't have to be done before Friday on the draft floor. But again, just the fertile ground and the nature of the trade environment around the draft, I'm still expecting that the Canucks are going to be active here. So, it's funny, as Ziggress goes here, guys, I guess I think last summer, the Canucks essentially gave away Vasily Podkolzin, who was the 10th pick in that 2019 draft, and now the 9th pick goes for what looks like a song as well. So, and I know that your draft position ultimately is just a starting point. It's what you do with the opportunities that presents. And Podkolzin didn't do enough here in Vancouver. Canucks seemingly gave up on him maybe a little sooner than they ought to. Now Ziggress, the top 10 of that 2019 draft. My goodness, though, just a dog's breakfast in terms of teams keeping the picks that they made not that long ago. And Jack Hughes at the top of the draft and Morris Seider, they look like the bells of the ball from the top 10. Then you get Matt Boldy, you get Cole Caulfield, Thomas Harley, a late riser sort of in the way that he's come along in Dallas. It just reminds me that through all of this, whether it was Podkolzin with the pick they used, whether it was Ziggress, a guy that they think they wanted, who went one pick before they selected, all roads lead back to the fact that they just flat out missed on Matt Boldy, right? 12th overall pick, who has become an absolute stud in the National Hockey League and appears that he will be for years to come. But that's water under the bridge. You can't go back and revisit history. We can do redrafts of a draft, and I think Boldy would probably be a top 5 guy for sure now. It's a reminder. And look, the Canucks weren't alone. There were a bunch of teams there that had an opportunity to get their hands on Matt Boldy, and they didn't. So, as far as the cost for Rossi, I don't know how that impacts things. It is a different player and a guy that, again, size may be a factor for some teams, but the Canucks need skill, whether it's tall skill, small skill, whatever. They need more skill. And so I still think they should be in and interested in a player like Marco Rossi.
They do need skill. We've been using the phrase flood the positions, and there's going to be some long shots I think that the Vancouver Canucks may want to sign that may ultimately not pan out. And they did this last year a little bit, and guys found themselves traded and on waivers and such. You've already mentioned him, Andrei Kuzmenko. Can you put the genie back into that bottle?
Bring Kuzi home, baby.
Look, it's undeniable the success that he had, and who did he have the success with? The guy in the middle that we spent a lot of time talking about. Look, I'm open to the idea. I don't know what the price point would be, and obviously Kuzmenko sort of rehabilitated his season and maybe his career after the trade to Los Angeles and down the stretch and even into the playoffs had a little bit of success. So, look, Adam Foote was here. He watched all of this unfold, cut from the same cloth, but he's not Rick Tocchet, and maybe the door would be a little more open. Rather than had Tocchet remained as the head coach here. So, there's a player that I'm going to be fascinated to see kind of what happens with him, what he can command on the open market. But, I'm not opposed to the idea.
His cap hit won't be bigger than his last cap hit. I think that's safe, isn't it?
I just think that there's been so many sort of twists and turns and underperforming for long stretches here that he can't command much term, if any, and the dollar figure I think would be manageable. And look, you have to expect that the warts that he has shown in various stops along the way now already in his NHL career, they're still going to be there. But if it's about finding a guy that had some chemistry and some success with Elias Paterson and a guy who can put the puck in the net,
it's skill. It's skill,
I'm not
man.
Totally opposed. And look, personality, the fans here.
Right, a positive personality that, after the year they just had, he's a little bit of a tonic, isn't he?
I think that there could be a path to bringing Kuzi home. So, something to monitor here as this week goes past the draft and into free agency.
What about Evander Kane?
On the different end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm not as sold there, and I know that you guys were kicking that one around late last week. And I get the ties to Vancouver obviously are strong. Growing up here, playing for the Vancouver Giants, there's a lot of mileage on that body. We saw that. Wasn't able to play in the regular season here. There were moments in the playoffs, but there were also moments as the series ramped up and Florida was sort of bullying the Edmonton Oilers that I expected and wanted more from Evander Kane in the way of some physical pushback, and I didn't necessarily see it there. Look, I don't cut the checks for the Vancouver Canucks, but I think that's a guy I would look past at this stage of his career for a number of reasons. I'm not sure that he's what this hockey club needs. But again, on a short-term deal, not entirely opposed to the idea, but I just, as I've sort of formulated some thoughts and ideas of, players that the Canucks might kick the can on, I'm not sure that Evander Kane is up there near the top of my personal list.
Should we pivot? Let's go to the Calder Cup Final. We wanted so badly the build-up to Game 5. We got it. They win Game 4, 3-1 series lead. And in my mind, I was thinking, hey, win or lose, at least we get the build-up and we get the excitement of that game. Well, of course, once you're in the game, you're like, okay, it's close. Let's win the game. Let's win the Calder Cup. But they ultimately fall in overtime. And now it's a little bit different for me, Jeff, than an NHL team having to do all this. The NHL doesn't do 2-3-2, but even if they did, it would be different in that the coverage is so wide, the access is so easy that I think people can live vicariously from a million miles away as they watch a game. The AHL is a little bit more cloak and dagger, being on a streamer. The fun is kind of ruined a little bit for the Abbotsford Canucks by dropping that Game 5.
Yeah, without a doubt. They missed an opportunity that would have stood the test of time had they been able to celebrate with 7,470. Like, where did they come up with the extra 200 and whatever, standing room? But when I saw the attendance there, because they had been high 71s and then got to 72, but the announced crowd was 7,470 the other night. So good on them. They were there. They were into it. They were ready to celebrate. And quite frankly, when Abbotsford took a 3-2 lead with the quick goals in the second period, I thought maybe we were going to see what we saw in the third period of Game 3, where they just ran away and hid from Charlotte. So credit to the Checkers, didn't go quietly, and ultimately tied the game. And then it's no goals in that third period. I didn't like Abbotsford's third period, and I thought maybe they were starting to think some of those thoughts that, hey, we're now 20 minutes away. If we can just get that one, we're 20 minutes away. The party's going to be on here. I thought they were passive. I thought maybe a little nervous. And then overtime comes, and I thought, all right, like they were all over Charlotte in overtime. Outshot them 8-5. Max Sasson with the post. And boy, I hope, a couple of days from now, we're not linking him to Nathan Lafayette and goalposts of lore in Vancouver Canuck, Abbotsford Canuck history. But Jujhar Khaira had that chance all alone in front of the net. Phil Giuseppe had an opportunity. They were putting pucks on net and forcing Kakko Kähkönen, who, look, has been the second best goaltender in this series. But in saying that, Kähkönen gave up 3 in the first 25 minutes and then didn't allow another one the rest of the way. So he did his part as well. And, man, what an ugly bounce. Not just a bounce, the double doink and in. But sometimes that's the way it goes, right? So, yeah, it was disappointing for the reasons that you laid out. Here's why I still give Abbotsford every opportunity. This team is 7-0 in games after losses in the playoffs. They have not lost back-to-back games. They have responded to every single loss in the postseason with a victory. A couple of those have been shutout wins. So they've earned the benefit of the doubt. This isn't just a nice couple of weeks. This has been going on for months now, the way that they've played. I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt. I think Manny Malhotra has shown throughout the postseason, and that record after losses speaks to the fact that he's made the right adjustments, made some tweaks to the way that his team has played. Manny wasn't thrilled with the 75-minute performance, but again, Charlotte's only beaten Abbotsford in overtime, and the 2 Charlotte wins in this series have both come in OT. Now, 3 of the games have needed overtime. 4 of them have been 1-goal games. They get really outside of that third period in Game 3. This thing has been as tight as those scores indicate. So Charlotte accomplished what it wanted, got the series back home. Abbotsford's still in the driver's seat. I think this is what works for Abbotsford, though. They went into Charlotte to start games 1 and 2 in the series, had never played in that arena, hadn't seen the Checkers other than on some video. They've got 5 games of firsthand experience now. There are no secrets at this point. And if they were caught off guard, if the sloppy ice in the South worked against them, now they're armed with the knowledge of what they're in for, right? Like they're going through the front door of Bojangles Coliseum. It's not the great unknown anymore. And so I think that works in Abbotsford's favor as well. That, look, Charlotte feels good about things. They're back home in front of their fans, but they've got no lives to spare here. Abbotsford still has a game to give. They don't want to think about going to a Game 7, but it is all right there. And Abbotsford's had the best players in this series, and Linus Karlsson and Arshdeep Bains, and throw Sasson in there as well. At the top of the lineup, Abbotsford's still skating circles around the Charlotte Checkers. They haven't had an answer at all for Karlsson or Bains. But Abbotsford could, and we've said this throughout the playoffs as well, there have been some other stretches where they could just use a little boost from a few other guys, right? The pointy end of the spear has been terrific for Abbotsford, but whether it's DiGiuseppe or Kyra or Nate Smith or Chase Waters, on and on it goes. A little bit, one more goal somewhere along the line in those 2 overtime losses, and they would be Calder Cup champs. So they're still in good position. They have to remind themselves of that, but long travel day yesterday, quick turnaround, and we'll see what happens in the slush fest there in Charlotte in Game 6.
I'm sorry, but it's just not an intimidating name. We're going to the Bojangles Coliseum. Oh, that's a fortress. Nobody goes to Bojangles and gets a 2. Let me ask this.
It's a fast food restaurant, is it not? I believe.
I believe so, yeah. Is your lineup at this point? Like, do you make any changes in Game 6 or Game 7 of a Calder Cup final out of choice or only out of injury? Like,
given how close the games have been.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Lekkerimäki has to play again, right? We're not. Are we coming with overtime hero Danila at all? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you stick. Again, they got to overtime, and they were the better team in overtime, a post away from breaking down a Calder Cup championship on the show today instead of previewing Game 6. So the options are slim. Atu Ratu's not available to Manny Malhotra. A guy like Ty Glover, who's a big body energy player, has been plugged in at times, but I don't think energy's been an issue here. I think you go with the guys that have got you this far, and they've prevailed 15 times in their 23 postseason games. So, it was, again, disappointing, and they hoped that it was a little bit of a blip on Saturday night. But I think you go with those guys, maybe appeal to some of those depth players that I just laid out there, just to find a way to contribute a little bit more. Like, that top line of Baines, Carlson, and Sasson had 16 of Abbotsford's 32 shots. Like, that's just that underscores sort of how much heavy lifting those guys did the other night. And ultimately, Abbotsford's success has been 1 through 12 in the forward group. Some unsung heroes along the way. I don't need Danila Klimovic to have a hat trick, but his one goal was a big one. It won Game 1, but other than that, he's been relatively quiet, and the same goes for a bunch of his counterparts right now. So you want your best players leading the way, but man, it would be nice if they could just find a little bit of offense from some unlikely or lower in the lineup guys here in Game 6, or even if it goes the distance on Wednesday night.
Who's joining you? Rinkwide Vancouver.
I got Irf. He was previously assigned on Saturday night at an engagement that he couldn't get out of, but the series goes on. And as I mentioned, this will be their 24th playoff game, guys. Postseason for Abbotsford began on April 23rd. Here we are on June 23rd. They're not done yet, but another opportunity, and we shall see. Obviously, the dynamics change if it does go 7. At that point, it's one game, winner take all. So missed their chance the other night, but I still feel good about the way that they've played, the way that they've approached things, and I'm giving them every opportunity. Again, this is a team that hasn't been denied, hasn't found its way to any sort of losing streak in the playoffs, and so there is absolutely every reason to believe that they can still get this thing done this evening.
No losing streaks. They've been competitive on the road. They get great goaltending. The penalty kill has been awesome over the course of the playoffs. 3 kicks. This should be done at some point, either tonight or Wednesday. Jeff and Irf, Rinkwide Vancouver, following Game 6 of the Calder Cup Final tonight. Jeff, thanks for this. Catch up later in the week.
All right, guys. Thank you.